Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar about finding synergy with Salesforce Data Cloud plus DESelect. I'm your host. My name is Anthony Lamott. I'm the CEO and co-founder of this company. And we offer the marketing optimization platform for Salesforce, which is something we'll be talking about a lot today. Uh, Throughout today's presentation, you'll have the option to post your questions in the chat. If it makes sense, I'll try to address them right away. If not, we'll definitely have a Q&A session towards the end. And while people are trickling in, I would invite you to share in the chat where are you based while I give people maybe half a minute to group. So if you're just joining, feel free to post where you're based, where you're calling in from today in the group chat. All right, we've got some folks from Chicago. We have a few from Austin. Awesome. So, welcome everyone. Oh, Brussels, great. Belgium is represented. That's always nice to hear. And let's jump into the presentation meanwhile. So one question that we often get is, do you work with Data Cloud? That is not a surprise because one of our flagship products historically has been DESelect Segment. Of course, Data Cloud offers segmentation as well. So how does that work together and how is it different? But beyond that, I think because there's been such a huge push by Salesforce in the market for Data Cloud, I think this is a question that any Salesforce partner gets a lot these days. So it's the right time to walk through that and we hope this webinar will provide you with a lot of information and some things to take away. On today's agenda, we'll do a quick recap of what Salesforce Data Cloud is, followed by what is the DESelect MOP, what is that platform about. Then we'll go into more detail, comparing Data Cloud with DESelect Segment, and even explaining how they can actually work together. We'll also talk about how Salesforce works together with DESelect Engage specifically. We'll round that up with a conclusion, and then at the end, as mentioned, we'll have some time for Q&A. Right, let's start with what is Salesforce Data Cloud. And as we do that, I'm actually going to put a poll in the chat just to have an idea of where people are today. Just give me 1 second. And if everything is going well, you should be seeing a poll now on your screen. So take a moment to look at that poll. The question is, are you already using Salesforce Data Cloud? Yes, it's fully implemented. Yes, we've started implementation. No, we're considering it, or no, we don't want it. And I'll give everyone a little bit of time. And for those who joined the call later, meanwhile, in the chat, some people posted where they're from. So if you want to have a bit more interaction and want to share where you're based, please do that in the chat. It's always fun to see where people are dialing in from. I'll give a little bit more time. I see still some answers trickling in on that poll. So, all right, great. I'll round it up now. So I'm going to end the poll, and it seems like we have a very Data Cloud heavy audience here today. That's great. Not a surprise given the topic of the day. So we have about 33% of people who said it's actually implemented already. Some, or actually half of the group half of the people who answered at least have started implementation. And then there's a few who say, no, we don't want it. So I'm going to stop sharing at this point and we'll continue the presentation. Great. So what is Salesforce Data Cloud? So at its core, Data Cloud is a CDP. That is a customer data platform. It stands out as a platform that enables businesses to harmonize data amongst various sources. There are 4 key capabilities, and those are ingestion, unification, segmentation, and activation. So let's talk a little bit more about those. So ingestion is a nice way to say that Data Cloud can absorb a lot of data. You can integrate a lot of data into Data Cloud. And probably the most used connector there is the Marketing Cloud connector, which is an out-of-the-box connector that comes with Data Cloud. But there are other ways of integrating large quantities of data, such as Amazon S3 buckets, Google Storage, and then since not too long ago, there's been a wide range of MuleSoft connectors available. So if you have MuleSoft, there's tons and tons of connectors, and now in total, there's over 200 connectors for Data Cloud. The second thing that CDPs, just like Data Cloud, aim to do is to unify that data. And what that means is that you're trying to bring together data from different sources and make sense of it. This could be through identity resolution, where you're trying to resolve maybe a customer record across different systems and bring that customer together in one place to have a 360-degree view. But what is important to know about how Data Cloud works, and it's kind of interesting, is that it's not the same as master data management. The idea is not to create a single golden record for everything. It is possible that you're going to have multiple records, even referring to the same person, because those records may be valid in different contexts. For instance, maybe you know me as a personal customer, but also as a business customer, for example. So that's unification. That's a huge part of what Data Cloud is used for. Is maybe the key reason, because that in itself is a stepping stone towards many use cases. And of course, one of the big use cases for any CDP, and especially for Data Cloud too, is segmentation. Now, Data Cloud offers segmentation in different forms. So there's drag and drop. There's also still some SQL capabilities there for features like calculated insights. Calculated insights are things like customer lifetime value, which you can calculate. And that is still, to some extent, code-based. And then, of course, as we've seen in multiple recent announcements at Salesforce conferences, there's also generative AI. And then lastly, there's activation. I've noticed that these words can sometimes lead to confusion with customers. Activation, simply put, is making sure that the data can sync to another system where the data can be consumed, such as Marketing Cloud itself. That is probably the prime example. But there's other platforms, like maybe you want to sync your audience to Facebook ads for retargeting. And these are just a few examples, because truly you could activate data in any system of your choice. So now that we've done a quick roundup of what Data Cloud is, it's important to now take a pause and see, what does DESelect do? And DESelect, while originally it was known as just a segmentation plugin, it has really grown into this multi-capability platform that we call the Marketing Optimization Platform, or MOP. And the idea of an MOP is that it helps marketers drive revenue with high efficiency through frequency optimization, segmentation, and search. So there's been a overall maturing of the MarTech stack, and I think there's now a whopping over 14,000 marketing applications available in the market. If you follow Scott Brinker's reports, which is astounding, and I think we're still going to see more of that, despite a lot of consolidation in the market too. But while customers have been building more and more marketing automation, that has led to other side effects. Customers losing overview, it becoming harder and harder to sometimes tie very sophisticated marketing programs to outcomes. And these are some of the challenges that an MOP is trying to address. Now, in the case of DESelect, it's a turnkey platform and is fully integrated with Marketing Cloud Engagement. So many customers still refer to this as SFMC or Salesforce Marketing Cloud, or some people even still refer to it as Exact Target. I'm going to be using Marketing Cloud Engagement here as the official product name for that product. So our platform, our MOP, is integrated with that through App Exchange. So you can download us off App Exchange, install it, and play with it. We offer 3 core components: Engage, Segment, and Search. Search is the product I'm going to be talking the least about today, but just so you know, it's a free search bar that works in Marketing Cloud Engagement. You can get it off App Exchange. So if you don't have it yet, it's probably a good time to run off and go get it. But we'll talk a lot more about Engage and Segment today. Now, one thing that I want to really stress is that overall, our MOP really extends Salesforce in myriad ways, and that applies to Data Cloud too. And so this is a somewhat architectural overview, and there's a lot of information on this slide, but I'll walk you through it, and I hope it will make sense by the end of it. The tagline is that DESelect is a natural extension of Salesforce Marketing Cloud Engagement specifically, but indirectly, it is also an extension of Salesforce as a whole, including Data Cloud. So let's walk through that. On the right-hand side, you can see here Marketing Cloud Engagement, this big blue box. And in it, you have the studios that we're all familiar with and we love and use on a daily basis, such as Email Studio, Mobile Studio, Content Builder, and so on. Now, the DESelect MOP is a modular platform. That means all of our modules or apps you can get separately, but they are working together too. And so search, I've already briefly mentioned that, but we also have segments, which allows you to segment audiences. But some customers go even further. They really use it to actively manage their data, going from structuring their data model to deduplicating and automating a lot of data processes. It's been really astounding to me to see customers sometimes automate more than 90% of their segmentation, for instance, through our module. And then the other module is Engage, which allows you to optimize send frequency, but also plan campaigns. There's a big campaign planner module and allows you to set priorities. All of these three modules are integrated fully into Marketing Cloud, which means in terms of look and feel, they feel like a natural extension of the UI, but they're also fully integrated with the data through APIs. Having said that, the data completely remains within Marketing Cloud. And that's why we say we're built on top of Marketing Cloud, because you enjoy that same infrastructure and security, and your data stays there from a data privacy point of view. That's great. And so because of that, all these things work in direct concert with MCE, and it's really a natural extension. But of course, Marketing Cloud engagement rarely lives in itself. It's usually fed by other systems that provide data to it. And that could be Salesforce CRM directly. It could be Salesforce Data Cloud, which we see more and more in the market, or it could even be a third-party system, some data lake like Snowflake, a data warehouse, maybe even another CRM system like Microsoft Dynamics. Or what can also be the case is that maybe you have something like Salesforce CRM feeding into Data Cloud, which in turn feeds into Marketing Cloud engagement. I think that's what we're going to see the ecosystem shift more towards in the future. But for now, there's as many combinations as there are companies. So what is on the left side here is something that you know best for your organization. The thing though is that whatever data flows in, well, it comes into Marketing Cloud engagement from some source, and there it can be leveraged by the DESelect MOP. And so we'll see a few use cases today where customers sing their data into Marketing Cloud, for instance, from Data Cloud, and then it can be leveraged by DESelect. And so indirectly, we also extend everything there. All right. So meanwhile, let's move on. So now let's pause quickly. What are the top three benefits of an MOP? So why would you do it? And I've already briefly highlighted it, but the key ones are revenue generation, efficiency gains, and marketing enablement. So on the revenue generation side, because with an MOP you can target more accurately, you can expect higher conversions, and you can also identify under-engaged contacts, especially through send frequency. We have a few cool examples of that later in the presentation. In terms of efficiency gains, we've seen people achieve 52% time savings or gains in marketing efficiency. We've seen people increase their campaign velocity with 23%, sometimes even way more. It's plug and play, it's turnkey. So it's only a 30-minute installation. So your time to value is very, very high with something that is as fully integrated as this. On the marketing enablement side, what it really allows you to do is, in terms of organization process, you can eliminate technical bottlenecks. You can also upskill talent on all levels. For instance, many marketers are not too familiar with their data because they're still reliant on technical resources to provide them data sets. What we have seen over and over and over again is that when you actually enable marketers, even when they're not non-technical, and you allow them to play with their data, they will learn, they will get better insight into their customers because now they know what data is available. And that in itself will lead them towards better campaigns because they know what's available. So enabling marketers to play with their data will get you better marketing overall. And then lastly, a smoother collaboration within Marketing Cloud engagement itself. Marketing Cloud engagement, while a very performant platform that can deliver a incredible scale, it can still be a daunting, somewhat technical platform. Our applications have provided many non-technical users to make easier use of the platform. So to get more out of your Marketing Cloud investment that way. So those are some of the benefits of the MOP. Here's an example of a customer that has got some tremendous success with our platform. This is Home Chef, a well-known food delivery service. And I think the main metric for me here is that they had a 3% lift in revenue per customer, which is insane. That's a fantastic result. These days, they're doing daily segmentation of over 5 million records, and it's non-technical marketers that can do that because they've been enabled. And they've achieved overall more sophisticated segmentation to identify niche customers, which in turn led to the higher revenue per customer. So to put in the words of Michelle, the senior manager for lifecycle automation, with DESelect, our marketing team is able to unify multiple data sources, identify high-valued customer segments, deliver curated experiences to those audiences, and produce measurable results. Best of all, they're doing it so independently, without reliance on IT or SQL, and in less time. We're improving order rates, generating more revenue, and DESelect allows us to do that. So that is a fantastic success story. And thank you, Michelle, for saying that. So now that you've had a overview of what Data Cloud is, and you've had an overview of the DESelect MOP can do, now let's look at some use cases of how these can work together and what the differences are. Starting, of course, with Data Cloud and DESelect segment. Just to recap, DESelect segment, now we're jumping into the modules of the MOP itself. DESelect segment is an intuitive drag and drop segmentation solution for Marketing Cloud, allowing you to segment, manage your data, and automate it all in Marketing Cloud engagement directly without requiring SQL, which if you're doing a little bit sophisticated segmentation, you're going to end up writing SQL in Marketing Cloud by default. Now, there are actually a few scenarios. And so we've created this very, very simple decision tree to help you understand if you should get Data Cloud, DESelect segment, or perhaps both. And that last part may surprise you a little bit, and it's going to be a big focus in today's presentation. But let's start with the decision tree. So say you're wondering, should I segment in Data Cloud or DESelect? Now there's one key question, and it's pretty profound, and that is, are you ready for a customer data platform? And in the next few slides, there will be some questions and insights on helping you answer that question. But overall, a CDP is a somewhat change in philosophy. It requires organizational support, and it requires a business transformation as well as a technical transformation. So these are the things that will really determine, do you have the appetite to do that? Now, say if that's not the case for whatever reason, then if you're looking to do your segmentation in Marketing Cloud itself, then hands down, go with DESelect. We've been doing it for years now. We've got a great success rate. Our current NPS within the quarter sits at 70, which is a new record we're breaking. And so we got you, like we can support you with that. But let's wheel back in the decision tree. So say that you are actually ready for a customer data platform, and maybe you feel maybe something like unification is really something you need as a capability within your stack. Then there's another important question that you should consider, and that is the CRM team, or maybe, or more likely, the marketing automation team, or the marketing operations team, or maybe even marketing itself, are those teams, or is that team, depending on how it works for you, are they able to take ownership of the CDP? You see, a CDP, as what we've seen in the market, is typically owned by more technical resources. It often falls under the CIO, not under the CMO. And whereas the CDP, in any case, should enable marketers, that distinction is very different. Now, if those teams can take direct ownership of their CDP, then yeah, maybe you want to go with Data Cloud purely. But if your marketing automation team or your marketing operations team can take direct ownership of the CDP and they don't have control on that, it means you're going to be reliant on more technical resources. In that case, what we recommend is actually to go for a hybrid architecture and a hybrid process. And what it is going to look like is that the team that's the Salesforce Data Cloud team that is governing the CDP, they can push master segments to Marketing Cloud. So master segments would be like the big building blocks you're going to use downstream. And then those teams that actually work with Marketing Cloud, whether it's CRM, marketing optimization, or marketing operations, they can segment in Marketing Cloud engagement with DESelect. And there's actually a number of benefits to that. So, but understanding these three scenarios can already answer a lot. And now I can go a little bit deeper, understand what can drive the answers to these questions. By the way, I'm just going to remind all of you that if you have any questions throughout this presentation, feel free to push them in the Q&A chat. If I won't take them right now, I'll definitely do so at the end. Okay, now, so to some extent, there is a question of should it be DESelect segment or Salesforce Data Cloud? And so as we've already seen, that's not always, it doesn't have to be an either or situation, but let's just compare them just for a moment next to each other, because they're somewhat different. And first of all, let's not even mention the slide, but I think it's really important to understand that these are just very different kinds of animals, right? They're very kind of different beasts. Data Cloud is a CDP. That's a platform in itself that has multiple capabilities, whereas DESelect segment is but one module of the DESelect MOP, which in itself has a somewhat different purpose than the CDP. So really, what you're trying to do is really important here. But if we're looking beyond that, the license cost of Data Cloud is usually an order of magnitude more than DESelect segment. Prices on the official website currently start about 100,000 per year, but there are many additional costs that go into it. And what's really important to understand, and this is somewhat different from how Salesforce has built for other products, what's really important to understand is that it is consumption based. Like a big part of what you're going to be built is depending on how many segments you're creating and how many of those segments you're activating later. And we'll talk more about that in a second. Next, we have the cost of implementation, but also the time to value. And those two are very related, so I'll cover them at once. So in terms of Data Cloud, I think the shortest projects you can expect are a 3-month project, but that is if it's really an out-of-the-box project and only integrate with Marketing Cloud. We've already seen that Data Cloud is meant to unify data. So typically, you're going to integrate more than just Marketing Cloud to really get the value out of it. And in those cases, what we've seen and heard from customers and seen in the market is that the projects can vary very widely from 6 to 18 months, maybe even longer. Because of that, the cost of implementation in terms of consulting fees, implementation fees, maybe even professional services from Salesforce, it will be significant. Whereas on the other side, DESelect segment, since it is a turnkey module, the time to value is measured in weeks. In fact, the implementation only takes 30 minutes, and customers who are find their way in the intuitive interface, they can get started right away. But in reality, we often schedule a few trainings, and customers start to see value after a few of those. Another big key differentiator is the data scope. So DESelect segment has immediate access to all of your Marketing Cloud engagement data. And for many marketers, that would be more than enough. But if you want a segment on data that is not in Marketing Cloud engagement, then you should probably lean towards Data Cloud, because you're going to unify all your data from various systems there. And ideally, all your enterprise data will feed into that. Now, in terms of complexity, because Data Cloud not only has a wider scope of data, as we just mentioned, it also still has some more technical features, such as the need to have to write some SQL to do things like calculate insights. On the DESelect segment side, the data scope is less. We do tons of things in the product that allow you to create templates and whatnot. And on top of that, every SQL feature exists, is supported, but things like calculate insights, those would be called aggregations in DESelect segment. Those are all purely drag and drop. So because of all those things, DESelect segment tends to be significantly less complex. And then lastly, the owner is typically different too. So Data Cloud, while it is an important tool for marketers, and it's also positioned as such, in reality, it is typically owned by more technical teams. It might be owned and mainly used by, for instance, BI teams. And the end users will also vary depending on the complexity. It could be BI, it could be technical marketers, or maybe even non-technical marketers. Whereas DESelect segment, since it's part of the Marketing Cloud engagement stack, it will typically be owned by marketing. And so segment will be used by, if not the end users, it will be used by marketing operations or maybe some other technical marketing team like marketing automation. Great. So there's a bit more we can say about that, but I hope this already provides you a really good overview of the key differences. Now, on the previous slide, I talked to how they are different. And in that case, it seemed like an either or scenario. But I've already mentioned that it is also possible to use a hybrid architecture. And in fact, that might be desirable for certain customers. And this picture is another somewhat complex picture I'm going to walk you through, nice and slow, but it explains how these two can function together. And then after that, we'll sum up what the advantages are. So Data Cloud and DESelect segment can work together. And the tagline here is that you would segment your data in Data Cloud, then you activate the segments to Marketing Cloud engagement, and then finally you segment campaigns in Marketing Cloud engagement using DESelect segment. So let's walk through that process. First off, I want to highlight that here on the left-hand side, we have Data Cloud. And you will recall, Data Cloud has 4 key capabilities, and we can already see them here: ingest, unify, segment, activate. And then afterwards, we go into Marketing Cloud. Starting on the very left, you can see we have multiple data sources like a CRM, data warehouse, or data lake. Could also be, one of the other Salesforce clouds, of course. And that data comes into Data Cloud via something called data streams. I'm going to save you the details on that today. And through certain processes, you can unify your data into what they would call a unified data model. So this is sort of like your cleaned up data model where you've constructed your 360. Maybe you have different contexts for different for the same person, but different contact information for that person. That's going to be your main model of which you're going to do the rest of your work, which could be segmenting your data, which is a feature you can use in Data Cloud. And so when customers do that, they may create what we would call master segments. Master segments is a bit of a more of an industry convention than an actual technical term. Especially people who've been working with Marketing Cloud engagement should be very familiar with that phrase because it's been sort of an ancient best practice by now to create master segments with the Marketing Cloud engagement itself. But you can do that just in one step before if you have Data Cloud in the Data Cloud itself. So for instance, your master segments could comprise things like new customers, prospects, ex-customers, so on. Now, the moment you have those segments, we're going to activate those in Marketing Cloud. And remember, activate simply means that the segment is essentially syncing over to the Marketing Cloud. Now, once those segments are there, as you can tell in this example, these segments are still very large. We're probably not going to do a single email to all ex-customers or to all prospects. We're going to want to be a little bit more granular and segment based on interest, history, geography, language, whatever it may be. And of course, there the solution of choice is DESelect segment. And so here you could, for instance, fine-tune your master segment of new customers to something that looks like a marketing segment that would be something like new customers that converted in the last 30 days located in NYC. And so one way to think about this is that on the left-hand side, we have data segmentation. On the right-hand side, we have campaign segmentation, but there are various terms used for this. Some people will use it. Some people will call it macro segmentation versus micro segmentation. Or you could say in Marketing Cloud, you do your operational segmentation, whatever it may be. The idea is that you make the segments more granular and that the marketers can do that themselves. And then finally, you can execute against that campaign and send out that email, that text message, whatever it may be. I noticed a quick question, by the way, in the chat by David. David's asking, can or will DESelect integrate with account engagement or part of it? So David, that's a great question. So right at this moment, we do not integrate with Marketing Cloud account engagement, and probably for the foreseeable time, we won't. However, one thing that we're actively investigating is Marketing Cloud Growth Edition, which seems to be to a large extent the future of certain marketing products of Salesforce. And that's something that I think has a lot of potential for the future. So thanks for the question. All right, back to slides. So just to sum it up from the last slide one more time, Data Cloud and DESelect segment can work together because you can segment your data in Data Cloud, but you can segment your campaigns in DESelect segment. In Data Cloud, you will be creating master segments, say new customers, whereas in Marketing Cloud engagement, using DESelect segments, you can refine those audiences for precision targeting. And for instance, a marketing segment of new customers could be fine-tuned for an actual campaign. So I hope that makes sense. Now, what are the benefits of doing this? Well, as you will recall from a couple of slides ago, when we compared both solutions, there are certain challenges or limitations that you can face in Data Cloud. And we'll list some of these here and then explain how the hybrid architecture actually resolves these. So let's start with the operational cost. As I've mentioned, Data Cloud uses a consumption-based model where you pay for every activation to Marketing Cloud engagement. And other SKUs are priced too based on consumption. In fact, I know that some customers, when they learn about this, say for instance, an IT department is considering the implementation of Salesforce Data Cloud, when they learn about the consumption-based model, their reaction is, no way we're going to let the marketers use this, because they know the marketers are going to want to segment frequently and iterate and experiment, which is what they should do. But of course, if you take that approach with a consumption-based model, it's just going to make your price explode, right? And that can be an actual limitation, business limitation to your ability to segment them. So the solution that this hybrid architecture offers you is that instead, if you do your actual day-to-day segmentation in marketing cloud engagement using DESelect, you can significantly reduce this cost. And you can still use Data Cloud for all the great things it does, like unify and activate, but the more frequent experimental day-to-day segmentation, do that in marketing cloud engagement itself directly. So that's benefit number one. Benefit number two, so on the organizational side, we've already mentioned that while marketers are encouraged to utilize CDPs, they're still typically owned and paid for by the CIO, not by the CMO. And as a consequence, they also tend to require more technical users. The benefit here is that if you go for the hybrid architecture, you're probably going to end up with the more technical teams creating master segments, pushing those through. And then you can leverage DESelect in marketing cloud engagement where marketers are already working. So it's easier from a business process point of view. It's easier from a user adoption point of view. And that brings us to the last one, ease of use itself. Data Cloud tends to be more complex in general because of the wider data scope and features like calculated insights, but also model builder, bring your own model. These are pretty complex features, pretty high level features. But many of these use cases that marketers would want are solved for by these, like for instance, through a feature called aggregations, allowing you to drag and drop things to do calculations like how much has a customer spent in the last 12 months. And on top of that, you can even pre-configure a lot of things, like say, if you would be joining tables together very frequently, you can save that as a template. If you use the same 20 filters every time, you can save it as a template, right? So it's really built towards enabling end user marketers. So the ease of use will be easier for them. So in sum, Data Cloud plus DESelect segment work great together. There's a hybrid architecture that allows you to dip into the best of both worlds. And I hope you have a good idea now of how that could work for you. This is not theoretical, by the way. We have actual customers that do this, right? So here's an example of a school specialty. You can also find the success story on our website. The problem that school specialty had was that the data cloud segments were too large for the technical campaigns. And they also tried to do SQL queries and Automation Studio, which was too time consuming. So they started to use Data Cloud in conjunction with DESelect segment. And the result is that they found it easier to join data extensions, supplemented with additional user data, so they have more data enrichment. So you can see it goes a little bit even beyond segmentation. They also used DESelect segment to enrich the data in Marketing Cloud, but they can also build further upon the Data Cloud segments. And overall, it's leading them to create more highly personalized communications. So Kenneth Gardner, the Marketing Cloud admin at School Specialty, commented, "It's simple to use. It saves the resources of those we have on staff. With more time freed up, they can focus on things more important to our business." So I think that's a great example of how Data Cloud and segment can work together. Lastly, before we go to the next section, I want to give you a call to action. You might want to check out this QR code because DESelect segment is actually available for free these days. Segment for a long time was only available paid, but we have actually released a freemium version. And this freemium version offers you all the features that you will find in our first tier called DESelect Enable. You can check it out on the website, but it already allows you to create filters, create selections, join tables together. So there's some things that normally you would only be able to do through SQL in Marketing Cloud Engagement that you can do with this free selection. It allows you to create up to 10 selections per month per business unit. You can activate it into 2 business units, and each of those can have 3 users and 10 active selections. Other than that, there's no limitations. So check it out if you haven't already. Great. So now we've covered a lot of things about Data Cloud DESelect segment, and that was probably one of the most important things we had to cover in this presentation. But we have to go a little bit further too, because as I already highlighted, the DESelect MOP goes beyond DESelect segment. It's just one of the modules these days. So how does Salesforce plus DESelect Engage work together? And before we do that, it's time for another poll. So check your screens and you should be seeing a poll about now. Um, the question now is, how does your organization determine send frequency? So this has to do with how often you send communications. So the potential answers are we don't, or maybe you're doing it through spreadsheets or manual methods, or perhaps you're using Einstein frequency capping, or maybe something else. If you're doing it some other way, by the way, be curious to learn how you're doing that, and you can share that in the chat, of course. I'll give people another minute to comment. All right, I'm gonna round up the poll now. So thanks everyone. So it seems that people in today's call are either not doing it or they're mainly using spreadsheets or manual methods. I see a few other people are still doing another method, so be curious to learn how they're doing that. Great. So thanks for answering. All right. Well, let's jump into what is DESelect Engage. So DESelect Engage is one of our other core modules of our platform, and it's an intuitive drag and drop frequency capping solution for Marketing Cloud, allowing marketers to easily set custom rules, priorities, campaign types, and contact categories. And these can be applied to every single send in Marketing Cloud engagement. So the benefits of this is that it enhances campaign visibility and control across teams. And on the top right here, you see a visual of a campaign planning module. What we allow you to do is beyond building the rules, we can also offer you a actual campaign planner where you can see into the future and kind of have an idea of which campaigns are going to be saturated to up to the level of individual contacts. So you can sort of plan your campaigns in, say for the next few weeks, but you can already predict which people are going to be oversaturated, so you can still adjust your campaigns. And that's extremely powerful. Because of that, everyone can see which campaigns are going out and when. And the precise rules about frequency tie directly to Marketing Cloud. The rules that you configure will have an effect in either Journey, Journey Builder, or in Email Studio. These rules are also automatically applied, leaving no room for error. I've heard it multiple times that customers try to solve for this, and I saw we had a few of those answers here too. Customers try to solve for it through spreadsheets or like very expensive meetings where people get around a big round table and they argue about which campaign has higher priority. That's a very difficult process, but on top of that, it's also no one leaves those meetings in full confidence because it's almost impossible to, at the individual contact level, figure out which person has been in which campaign and which not. So it's very hard to do this. That's why you really need to do it in an automated way if you want to do it well and somewhat efficient. Now, let's talk about how this compares to Salesforce's own offering. And so a question we would often get is, well, what about Einstein frequency capping? First off, I want to say Einstein itself, the name sometimes causes a bit of confusion with customers who are newer to the platform. It's really important to understand Einstein is a brand name. There is no single Einstein product, all right? There's no single Einstein product. The term is used across many of Salesforce's AI capabilities, and some of these are generative AI, some of these are predictive. So you always should ask, what Einstein are we talking about? I am talking about Einstein frequency capping, which is a feature very specifically to Marketing Cloud engagement. So to walk you through that, it offers predictive modeling. So it uses data views that are known as underscore send, underscore open, and underscore unsubscribe to categorize customers. It's also integrated with Journey Builder. There's a little visual of that here on the top right. You can see the Einstein frequency split. Based on that, it will automatically exclude contexts that it deems saturated. There's another visual below here where you can see how saturated contacts are in a business unit based on Einstein, and it will tell if customers are saturated, on target, or undersaturated. However, there are big limitations with this. First off, the data requirement. So you can only do this if you have at least 90 days of data to be effective, and it only works with email and push, so not with text. But most importantly, it only works if the contacts in Marketing Cloud's out-of-the-box subscription center can be analyzed. And that tends to be a problem because more often than not, customers use a custom preference center, and if you go that way, you just can't use this feature, right? So that's where it ends for most customers. But even if those things wouldn't be a blocking factor, on top of that, Einstein is a black box, so we can see who's been saturated and who hasn't. But we don't know why that is. It's very hard to understand. Also, the prioritization that Einstein applies is reliant on first come, first serve. So if a communication is coming up for a customer, what we don't take into account is other sends which are planned for, which is something you can do with DESelect Engage thanks to the campaign planning functionality. So that's also ties into this last bullet. It only works retroactively. So modeling is based only on past sense. It can't help you with future campaign planning. Okay, so that's Einstein frequency capping. So that's how it compares with Marketing Cloud engagement. I think is important to mention. The conclusion of this, though, is that DESelect Engage really complements Salesforce because DESelect Engage's capabilities far extend Einstein frequency capping. For instance, our send frequency optimization can be rule-based, but it can also be machine learning-based. We have a campaign planning module. You can do prioritization and so on. I don't have a separate slide on that, but I just want to mention that Data Cloud does not offer send frequency optimization. Sometimes I've heard a bit of confusion around this because yes, in theory, you could create things like suppression lists in Data Cloud and you could sync that through. But first of all, you're gonna have that same problem with the consumption-based model. There's not gonna be a very cost-efficient way of doing things. But next, and that's the third bullet here, was really important to understand is that DESelect Engage sits at the level of marketing execution. So it sits within Marketing Cloud. And there's a very good reason for that, because you can only properly take care of send frequency optimization if you can go to the level of individual sends, which is something you couldn't do with Data Cloud, right? What I'm trying to say is, say you have a journey with 10 different steps. At every send, you want a mechanism to be able to go there. And yes, there could be a theoretical solution with suppression lists and all that, maybe fed in by Data Cloud. But from a cost point of view and just practically and making sure it's always applied, it's just not a good, it's just not a good pragmatic solution that no one's actually going to implement. So in essence, Data Cloud just doesn't offer send frequency optimization. That's fine. That's not the purpose of the platform anyway. So as such, DESelect Engage offers a complement to Salesforce's offering and enables marketers to really take their marketing to the next level. I have one more success story for you. This is from the Brain Tumor Charity, and they've been using DESelect Engage to prioritize campaigns for an optimal customer experience. And here too, they've seen an increase in revenue, or in their case, donations, because this is a charity. They've also gotten way more insights into how their campaigns are actually impacting customer journeys by figuring out where is the saturation point for different customers. And they've had considerable time savings compared to the original contact strategy because a lot of this stuff is automated. So Gina Almond, Director of Fundraising, she commented, if we engage our customers in the right way, we will optimize donations. And by doing that, we will be able to put more money into supporting those with a brain tumor and their families. So it's quite a wonderful and heartwarming success story. Conclusion. So we've talked a lot about Data Cloud, the DESelect MOP, and then how first segment relates specifically to Data Cloud and how Engage relates to Salesforce as a whole. So our MOP consists out of those three products. Won't spend too much time on this. And we also had a third product that I didn't highlight too much today. It's a free app you can get from App Exchange if you want to have a search bar. And I will just sum up what are some of the key synergies if you combine Data Cloud with DESelect. First off, you'll have powerful capabilities like unified data management, where Data Cloud is really key. But you can also have both data and campaign segmentation. So you can do your master segmentation in Data Cloud, but do your more granular segmentation inside of DESelect. Overall, you have more improved technological organizational alignment. What I mean with that is that, as I've mentioned, marketers tend to use Marketing Cloud, but more technical resources tend to use CDP. By offering by combining the products in this hybrid architecture, you're really making sure you're optimizing the products and you're having sort of best-in-class products for your different user bases, for different users. And lastly, you can also do send frequency optimization, which is a capability really pretty unique to the DESelect platform. All right, so that was today's presentation. I'll open the floor for some additional questions now. Feel free to post them in the Q&A section. And meanwhile, your call to action for today is if you want to be in touch with me or have more questions, feel free to shoot me an email. Make sure you're following me on LinkedIn. We post a lot of content there that you might find interesting if you found today's presentation interesting. And of course, if you want to understand exactly how this MOP would work with you and Data Cloud, then you can just book a demo through the QR code. Meanwhile, I see we have one question. So someone's asking, does Data Cloud include Einstein? That's a great question. So that ties a little bit back to what is Einstein in the first place. So Einstein is really a brand that Salesforce uses to cover multiple products. And Data Cloud, just like the other products of Salesforce, or like most other products, has some Einstein capabilities. In case of Data Cloud, for instance, I do have a generative AI driven way to create segments. The only thing I would nuance there is that those things typically still require some manual checks afterwards. We ourselves at some point decided to not integrate OpenAI into a DESelect segment just because we saw that data models are so different between customers and you really want to make sure your segmentation is accurate. So I think it's exciting what generative AI is doing, but be conscious that it's not perfect yet. And especially for segmentation, you'll want to double check very heavily to make sure you got the right segment as well. I see we have a longer post in the chat. Okay, see someone's sharing their whole architecture. Okay, thanks, David, for clarifying that. I have one other question in the Q&A section. That is, doesn't Data Cloud have a free edition as well? That's a great question, actually. So, yes, Data Cloud. So, Salesforce a while ago did announce a free edition of Data Cloud, but what's really important to understand is that this is not a really usable edition. That edition is really meant for technical teams who want to start experimenting with Data Cloud, and it's often offered as part of a package too. But the moment you're actually going to start doing your operations with that platform and you have to segment and activate, again you're going to run into the consumption-based model, and then from that point on you'll definitely have to pay. So it's a free edition, but it's more meant to for the developers to get their hands dirty. It's not really meant for end usage. Great. I don't see any further questions for now. Thanks everyone for your attention, for participating, and for your questions throughout. It was a pleasure hosting this, and I wish you all a great day.